Today is Epiphany. Epiphany. An old-fashioned word meaning manifestation or something like that. There's an ancient king who was so deluded as to think that somehow he manifested a deity. So he gave himself the surname Epiphanes. But here we talk about the true Epiphany, the manifestation, the time when the Lord, our God, our Maker, our Redeemer, is seen. The readings today from Isaiah, the Psalms, Ephesians and Matthew describe this event. This event, of course, is known as the wise men or the kings. And I will quote Matthew chapter 2, beginning at verse 1. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler, who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had been seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, its mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This is the gospel of the Lord. And so there's the famous story of the visit of the wise men, the Magi. The word Magi is how it's written in the original language. And it could symbolise a couple of things. It could symbolise scholars from Persia. That's where the word originally came from. But by the time of the New Testament writers, it had become to mean not just scholars from Persia, but also come to mean various people that dealt in mysteries and ideas and thoughts and knowledge and secrets and all kinds of things. And it's where we get our word magic. So what these magi were, well, they're obviously people that wanted knowledge or somehow had knowledge or possessed knowledge or thought they had knowledge. And they had seen a star. They saw a light. The way that Matthew wrote this, he deliberately calls to mind the passages from the Psalms, from Psalm 72. Kings of Tarshish and the Isles shall pay tribute, and the kings of Arabia and Saba offer gifts. All the kings shall bow down before him, and the nations do him service. And that's why I think sometimes people think of these three visitors, or these visitors, as the three kings, because of that passage from the Psalms. In Isaiah, it says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples. But the Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will appear over you. Nations shall come to your light, kings to your brightness of your dawn. Lift up your eyes and look around." They all gather together. "They come to you. Your sons shall come from far away, and your daughters shall be carried on their nurses' arms. Then you shall see and be radiant. Your heart shall thrill and rejoice, because the abundance of the sea shall be brought to you. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. A multitude of camels shall come in. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba will come. They shall bring gold and frankincense, and shall proclaim the praise of the Lord." Notice he talks about the ships of the sea and the people from Sheba and Saba. They're talking about from the east and from the west. Sheba is thought to be Arabia, or down at the south end, down there somewhere in the heat and the dust, where frankincense comes from. And the isles are the places of the western Mediterranean, basically everything across the sea. was thought of as, broadly speaking, the Isles, according to the ancient Israelites. And the Isles were the place of the foreigners and the treacherous and the exotic and the fearful, because it was across the sea, which was a symbol of destruction and horror to the ancient Israelites. And so they're talking about the whole world. Everyone will come. Everyone will see this light that shines in the darkness, which is partly why we haven't got the church very well lit, and why the candles are lit, and why the candles at the back are lit, because we want to symbolise that light rising up in the darkness. And the story of the Magi, the wise men, they see a star in the night. In the night of ignorance, in the night of sin, of death, of suffering, in the night of everything wrong, they see a star. They see light shining. And when you think about, what would the enemy not want to see in the Son of God? Why would the enemy, Satan, the devil, not want the Son of God to be seen and worshipped by people? He'd do everything he can to stop them getting there, to shield it, to hide him in the dark, the darkness of ignorance and knowledge, of the lack of knowledge, of sin and death and everything else, of fear. Then what does the Lord do? He shines a star. Who can take a star out of the sky? Who can shake a star from its place? Who can hide a star from shining on the world? The best you can do is make a cloud. But what cloud could cover the whole earth? And so the Lord shines his light irresistibly. Nothing can hide that light. And any who want it can see it. Any who want to follow that star can see it and can follow it. The Lord's light shines in the darkness, and darkness cannot overcome it. And so these men, these Magi, followed the light. They saw it, and they desired it, and they went towards it, and they found the Messiah. They saw him with their own eyes. And they gave him gifts. They gave him what they had. There's that lovely hymn, In the Bleak Midwinter, by Christina Rossetti. In the bleak Midwinter. It's not so much talking about Jesus being born in the middle of winter. It's talking about the winter of our lives, the winter of our hearts, the winter of life without the knowledge of God in Christ Jesus. And she says, if I were a shepherd, I'd bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I'd do my part. What can I give him? For as I am, I can bring my heart. That is the worship we give to God. We bring what we have. Most of all, our hearts. And the things we give after that are simply expressions of that first gift, of the heart. After one is given the heart, everything else is small, it's trivial by comparison. Once you've given your heart, everything else is little, really. Everything else is natural. But the heart is the biggest thing. Sometimes you feel tempted to give something else instead of the heart. You think, maybe I'll give him something expensive, I'll buy him off. Maybe he'll be satisfied if I give him a lavish present. But the Lord will not be bought off. He'll not be impressed by luxury or wealth or splendour or by extravagance or by anything. Because what he wants is our heart. And then what can we give? What can be our tribute to the true King? To the real King? Because one of the contrasts in this story is between the King who is Jesus, Jesus born as King, and Herod, who became king, who seized it. who was given the kingship by the Romans. Jesus, born as king, waited in humility until that kingship has been conferred upon him by his Father in heaven. And he'll come again with power and great glory and will rule the world. But at the moment, the empires come and go and the Herods come and go. But they're not the true king. Because as Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. What of the people that actually saw him? That star shone in the night for everyone. Why was it only these 3 foreigners that came looking for him? Why was it that when they arrived at the court of Herod, the scholars quite correctly said, in Bethlehem of Judea will the Messiah be born? Why didn't they come? Now they knew. In case they weren't into stargazing, now someone had prompted them and said, hey look, there's a star written. Maybe the Messiah is coming. Why didn't they come looking? Were they afraid? Were they apathetic? Did they simply think, no, it's not now? Someone pointed out that the Sadducees, the priests of the temple, weren't really keen for the Messiah to come. Were almost hoping he wouldn't come because it'd be inconvenient. The Pharisees thought that the time wasn't right for the Messiah to come because the people weren't properly walking according to the law. They weren't properly doing what was right to prepare the way for the Messiah. But they were both wrong, weren't they? Because the one who prepared the way for the Messiah was not the Pharisees, getting the people to live in a certain way. It was John. And the sacrifice was not to be made in the temple by the priests. It was made by Jesus on the cross. And so when it says, arise, shine, for your light has come and the glory of the Lord has risen, they're talking about the rising of Christ. He is the glory. His glory was seen on the cross, and his glory will be seen again when he comes with power and great glory. He is the one who has arisen, and upon whom the light has shone, and whose light shines out even now. And so, how will we come? Will we look for the light? Will we see it and follow it and walk towards it? Will we give our hearts in worship to the true King? Or will we be intimidated by the kings of the world around us? Will we bring our gifts, our offerings, our free will, our worship, our thanksgiving, our tangible gifts because of the worship and the thanksgiving in our hearts? Because we have offered the King the true tribute, which is from the heart. And therefore, as we remember this story which happened of the King made manifest, of the Lord's goodness manifest on the earth, as the true seekers who sought the light found it, let us too seek the light. For it's promised that as we seek we will find. And let us too offer the worship from our hearts to the true King. Amen.